All right, what is up, everybody? This is digital editor Chase Doak of the Billings Gazette. Today, March 1st, 2021, is a special day for us at the Billings Gazette because it's the 25th birthday of the Billings Gazette website. And I should stop myself right there because I'm not being exactly honest. The Gazette website actually launched on a leap year. So its birthday was on February 29th, 1996, and not on March 1st, but this is the closest we can get. So I thought it would be a fun chance for us to kind of revisit some of the old iterations of the Gazette website, and we actually have the technology that allows us to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to try to walk through as best I can. Some of the elements of the old websites are going to be broken, but I think it's still going to be fun. It's going to be a nostalgic trip down memory lane for some of you who grew up in the 1990s or were around during the early days of widespread internet use. So here we go.
Welcome.
All right, so as you can see, I've got my AOL up here. Through the magic of time travel, we've brought back America Online here. That's a lie. This is just a simulator, but it does a good job of capturing the feel of the old AOL experience. So we're going to bring up the earliest version of the Gazette website that is archived on archive.org. And if you're not familiar with archive.org, it's a website where it's run by the Internet Archive, which they have since 1996, ironically, archived web pages across the internet, and that is what allows us to go back and actually look at some of these old websites as close to what they looked like back in the day as we can get. So this is the earliest version of the Billings Gazette website, launched on February 29th, 1996. You'll see the earliest version we have here is actually from October of 1996. The Internet Archive didn't actually launch until after the Gazette website did. So that was, I believe, around May of 1996. But this is the earliest version that we've got. You can see there's some nice, web-safe colors going on here for all you old-timey web developers out there. The color palette back then was a little bit limited, so you'll see a lot of very vibrant colors going on here. But anyways, this is the earliest version we've got of the Gazette website. And as I scroll through here, you'll see it was a very simple website. Obviously, web design was kind of in its infancy back then. It was about 5 years old at this point, HTML. So it was still pretty limited in exactly what you could do. So this really looks like an old website, but it's with the simulator, you can see that the text is a lot smoother than what you probably would have seen back then. So it's not exactly the same experience, but this is still fun for me. I grew up here in Billings, and I've always been a computer nerd, and so I really grew up with this website, and it's just fun for me to see everything. So I'm just going to click around to a few of these pages, and hopefully we don't run into any, inappropriate archived pages from after the website launched. One of the things I will note is you'll see in the address here, the Gazette's website didn't actually launch at billingsgazette.com to begin with. It was actually part of collaborative website called Infinete that hosted a lot of newspaper websites, and I'll actually give you just a brief intro to that in a second here. But that's why this address up here, which is what was archived by archive.org, that's why it's not billingsgazette.com up here. But only this first version appeared on Infinete. So you can see we had our sports, region, business, and computing news Computing news was all the rage back in the 90s. So we actually had a dedicated computing news section on the website. You will not find that on today's BillingsGazette.com, but you could back then. And when you bring up the website, it was actually just one story, and I believe this was the front page story every day is what you would land on when you would get to the home page. But you can actually go through to some of the other sections. It will take a little while, so we get to watch that nice AOL animation up there. So you can see it was really only about one story per section at the time. So it was very limited, but still, this was, 1996, and the number of online readers was pretty low at the time, and you can just kind of see how limited it was. We did have this nice navigation at the bottom. I'm not sure if it actually had this duplicate down below, but back then it was very common to have these sort of sliced images as your navigation, and so that's what we had. We did have a weather and opinion section as well, and a few other ones there. As you can see on the homepage, if we go back, here's a broken image. You can actually see that I believe it was on one of these days. You can actually see down here, we would offer the previous week's worth of home pages down here, so you could actually look at them. Kind of like what we do with the e-edition these days, but it didn't really mirror the printed paper like what you see in the e-edition today. But I think it was on Tuesday or Monday that we had actually the oldest story that we can get to. Okay, so it was not Tuesday. You can see some mentions of former Governor Mark Roscoe in there. And it wasn't Monday either. Wow. Okay. This is actually pretty blazing fast compared to what we had back in 1996 when it was all dial-up. And there we go. So the earliest version we had was from October 23rd of 1996. And you can see some nice spinning graphics there. Whether you pronounce it GIF or GIF, you're going to see a lot of those as I walk through here. But here's the earliest story, and it's actually kind of amazing. We've got the photo itself archived here. So you can just kind of see how it was styled and how it looked. And a lot of these stories, if you wanted to actually read some of these old stories, I should mention that you can actually use the archives on our website. If you go to billingsgazette.com/archives, and we have a deal with newspapers.com to offer some discounted subscriptions to their web service, which actually has basically scanned copies of our old printed papers, and you can go through them, and they're searchable, and it's a really great tool. And so I just wanted to lay that out there for any of you history fans who are looking to look back on some of these old stories. So as promised, I'm going to show you what Infinete looked like, and it's going to try and find the version that was closest to the time that this launched. All right, so you can see this is a very old-fashioned website. But back then they had this newsstand, and it was actually a way to direct people to various newspaper websites across the country. And you can see here it's a pretty large list and pretty widespread, but at the time Billings was the only Montana paper that was included in this Infinete listing. I don't personally remember this website all that well. So I don't really know, how it worked and if there were other alternatives. But this is how the Gazette got online, and it was a member of this website. But not only that, we actually had this Big Sky Wire website, and that was really the landing page if you wanted to get to the Billings Gazette. Big Sky Wire We got some incredible graphics right here. You can see this jet flying across. Big Sky Wire offered a lot of Montana and Wyoming area information, not just the Billings Gazette online, but also a Yellowstone National Park online guide. There was this All About Billings guide. I'll just click through to that real quick and hope that it's an appropriate website. But back then, the internet was really used for information. That was the big draw. It was the World Wide Web, and you could go on and you could learn about things and get information. And obviously, that's still the case today. But back then, a lot of websites really wanted to provide information that you probably could have found in books or, in the phone book. But that's really what this Billings answer book was all about, and it really just provided information about various things in the Billings area. And of course, back then we had to teach people how to navigate. And there were a few things I should note. I'm using a scroll wheel right now. Back then, you would not have had a scroll wheel likely. You might have if you had a really nice mouse. But in many cases, you were kind of limited to using the up and down arrows and just dragging this. And so on a lot of these pages, you'll actually see a top button appear to help people get back to the top of the page. We also had an online store back then, this marketplace. It was brand new. Do not call this phone number. I don't know where it goes to. I think it's probably still one of our live phone numbers, but I don't know whose it is. But we did actually have a page where you could go and purchase books. You still had to call in to buy these, but you could do that. And we had all of these various books. And some of these, believe it or not, we still have a few copies left. So if you're interested, keep an eye out because we have an exciting announcement to make here in the coming weeks. But I know for a fact we have at least a few copies of this Year of the Grizz book, which was brand new back then, all about the 1995 University of Montana NCAA championship. So if that is something that interests you, just keep an eye out and you'll see in the coming weeks how you can order that. So we'll go back to the Gazette website just for a second. I just wanted to take one last look at this magnificent website. We were all about lasers and bright colors back then, and that's just kind of how it was. So this is how the Billings Gazette website launched in 1996.